Welcome to the Uplift, where we are uplifting our lives, uplifting each other, and uplifting our communities together. Thank you for joining myself, Cy Herrera, and Tessa Cy here, two women, two attorneys, doing it our way, and inviting you here each week to share in on the stories, advice, and life lessons we've picked up along our journeys that keep us uplifted, and that will hopefully do the very same thing for you. Now buckle in and let's get ready to be uplifted.
Hello, Cy. As always, I am Tessa, and I am joined by the lovely and amazing Cy.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Tessa. Good to hear your voice.
Good to hear yours. It's the start of a new year. I don't know when everyone's listening to this, and I think this applies throughout the year. But I was talking to somebody who decided that they needed to have everything in place before they moved forward. Like they needed to get their whole life together. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of burden to put on yourself. Who made up those rules? But it also seems so true for everything, right? Like whether it's a choice to have children or not, you feel like everything has to be perfect before you do it. Whether or not it's a choice to get a new job or enter a new relationship, you feel like, you hear those horrible social messaging words about, well, you can't date somebody until you look just perfect. Like, well, that's messed up because wow.
And what
But
is
it just
perfect? Who says what
right?
perfect is? But okay, yeah.
But that whole idea that for anything in our life to move forward, it has to be perfect just seems so weird to me when you right? Like, is it
Yeah.
a idea that is cultural that is supposed to hold us in one place? Is it some sort of weird classism issue? Is it just our kind of culture in the United States that I don't know, feels like to me, kind of as with an outsider lens, there's a suffering that has to occur. And I would attribute that to puritanical stuff, right? Like you have to suffer
Yes.
before you can move forward, or you cannot have that piece of pie because you must
You haven't
suffer
earned it.
otherwise.
Yes.
Oh, talk about a
Yes.
bad relationship with food.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
but just think about all those examples, how much that permeates this idea that
Mm.
everything has to be perfect before anything can change.
Oh, and what a limiting mindset, right? And what an interesting, I always think about control, but what an interesting lever of control that people don't feel like that they
Yeah,
can change anything. So things have to stay the same and power has to stay where it is until you reach a certain level of approval from who and also from who, like just from who, you know?
hmm,
Oh, this is so interesting and so relevant right now and like you said throughout the year, and also who is holding themselves to these impossible standards more than others,
right.
and why does that happen? And who's sending the messages, right? And who's benefiting from this messaging, like all of that. And I wonder, yeah, if people are reflecting on that or they're just feeling all of these pushes and pulls and really, as I always say, like letting life kind of push them around, and that's not with judgment. That's recognizing how powerful those forces are and how all of us get wrapped up in that and how we have to fight against it and we have to be vigilant and we have to help each other see it in order to
Hmm.
fight against it because they're invisible forces. So very much invisible forces.
And I mean, just think about that simple idea of whether or not you can have that piece of pie and how
Mm,
not only is it ingrained in society, but it was probably ingrained through your family too,
yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
how many friends do we have whose mothers kind of ingrained that really bad relationship with food into their
Hmm.
kids? I mean, how do
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
burst through that kind of familial plus societal?
Well, and as you were speaking, it just made me think about something that I've come back to over and over within my life is just, I think that we really have a self-esteem crisis in our society. I
Ooh,
really
I
think
like
that
this idea.
there's an epidemic of low self-esteem. And, as a woman that grew up as a girl, like I think that my experience helps me see that how it impacts, people of the same or similar background. But I mean, I've also seen the crisis in men, and queer folks and gender queer folks. I mean, it's just interesting how it's like for me, it always comes back to self-esteem and self-worth because that is really the cornerstone on which you build everything else, especially relationships. But it's like relationships to people, relationships to food, relationships to yourself, relationships to the strangers, the outside world, professional relationships. I really think that that is um, at a crisis level, honestly. And the reason I say that is because first of all, abuse is very prevalent still.
Mhm.
We know that that's true. I mean, quickly the statistics, just generally, specifically for women, 1 in 3 women has experienced some form of intimate partner violence, and then that can take all types of different forms. But the same for little boys. Little boys have experienced abuse. Sexual abuse is pretty prevalent, unfortunately. And then even when you're not talking about abuse, it's talking about literally that learned and socialized mentality, right? And it's sad because parents always get like the bad rap, in all of it. But we're all living in it. We're all living in it, and it goes through us, and we think that we're doing the best for our kiddos because we think that that is what's right and wrong. But at the end of the day, it's coming from somewhere is my thought. And I think my theory is a lot of this is coming from capitalism in a lot of ways of people are trying to sell you things. Like if you don't feel thin, then and you need to be thin, well then here's something that makes you thin or makes you look thin, or you want to be this or that, like well here's something that you can buy, or you want your skin to look this way, or even plastic surgery. I mean, it's a business. These are all businesses, and there's a whole industry that thrives financially on our insecurities. So I'm not
Ab
surprised.
Absolutely. For my work in government, I will also mention that I think we should also think about how lobbyists play a role, right? Because like
Mm,
these government standards come from somewhere and they
yep.
come from
Oh,
people who
yes.
have clients who want to
Yes.
make money off of this. And that's why, I
Oh
don't
god. Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that everyone requires the medication that they are
Right.
taking because the standards keep changing and those standards are changed because somebody represents somebody
Oh.
who wants to sell
Oh,
more of
yes.
something.
Oh, yes, prescriptions. I wasn't even going there in my mind. I was going to the food lobbies because I've always been very interested in that because, diabetes is been endemic, especially in Black and brown communities, and just very close to home where I've seen the devastation. And and it is political. That's what's so interesting. Like when
It
I was
is.
young, I used to think like I don't want to be involved in politics. It's a mess. It's too much. It's just no, and it doesn't sound fun. And then you grow and grow, and you just realize like, oh, politics is everything. Literally everything. The food you eat, the safety, the trash collection. I mean, just everything is politics. Everything is political. Like everything that we're doing is political because we live in a place where, politicians are making decisions. And like you just said, there are different parties influencing them. And oh yeah, with pharmaceuticals, I mean, I mean, it's almost like an open secret now. Like I don't know how many people in my family, elderly people, have almost been, frankly on the brink of death, not doing well, go to a new doctor and the doctor's just like, "Oh, we need to take you off of half your medications." And it's just like it's not even it's just commonplace. And it's
Yeah.
like something that we know now where we're just like, "Oh, do they look like do they look like really like out of it?" Like, is that what's going on? And we're just like, oh, we gotta get them off of all the medications because they just build, right? And the same thing with food. I mean, I think it's really
Mhm.
interesting, like there's a whole history of the what is it called? The government, like, recommendations,
Oh,
nutritional
yeah.
guides, right? Like, oh lord, like, if you go back and look at that stuff, I mean, and honestly, we still don't it's like we still act like it's a mystery, and it's probably really not, it's probably pretty simple, but, I mean, still now, it's still a fight, right? Where people are fighting to get their products on those guides because those guides lead to government contracts, period. Like, it,
Right.
like, equals money, and so it is very interesting the way that we monetize people's health, mental health, physical health, sexual health, their self-esteem, right? Like, their emotional health. We monetize it. We monetize everything, and it's a little terrifying, and I just wanna recognize how hard it is
Yeah.
for all of us, like, I feel like we all have to navigate this, and, when I was young, I feel like I don't know, it's like you get the strangest messages, and, I feel like the messaging I got, and I think, I'm very grateful that I didn't have, I guess, more disordered eating, but I felt like the messaging I got was just like, "Don't eat." That's really
Wow.
I feel like that was the messaging, and I can't really explain it, but I just remember, like, when I was in high school, I think, I just wouldn't eat breakfast, and then I would eat, like, which this is not healthy, please don't anyone ever do any of this, like, I just remember thinking, like, if I eat just 1 bagel, like, that is moderation for the day, and that's what I would do, like, if I would just eat the same thing every day, I wouldn't eat any breakfast, I would eat this 1 bagel so that I could keep going, and then I mean, and that was those were the times that I had control over my food, like, my family had, control over dinner or whatever, but, it's I just look back at that and it's just telling to me because I didn't think there was anything wrong with it, I didn't think and I don't know, even now it's hard to describe, like, what's exactly wrong with it except for I was just thinking about being thin, I think, and it's just so weird how it translates.
Right, and that necessarily means health, which it doesn't.
No,
And,
definitely not.
your experience about just eating a bagel made me think of that scene from The Devil Wears Prada where the girl says,
Mm.
"Well, when I feel like I'm about to pass out, then I have a piece of cheese." So I'm
Yes.
like,
No, exactly. That's really literally, like, where I was like, "Oh, bread helps me feel like I can keep going." So,
yeah,
it was like, if I just eat just enough bread, then, I can keep going. And but I mean, you see, like, it's just interesting, like, that's in a movie, and it's like, do are we even shocked by that? I
I don't think so. I
I'm
think it was trying to
no.
prove a point, and more
Yeah.
than anything, I think everybody was like, "Yeah, okay, I get it,"
Yeah, I relate.
which is
It's
so messed
sad.
up.
It's so sad, it's so messed up, and it just makes me think, like, what kind of information are we sending to our children? Not that it's all about children, it's about all of us, it's about our inner children, right? Like, what messaging do we need to undo in order to live healthy lives right now? And, if you mix poverty into that situation, it's even more complicated, right? Because it's like, for me, it it sounds weird, but it's like, especially when there's not a lot of money, it's just like not eating a lot or wanting food all the time. Like, that's a good thing. It's kind of a good thing. You don't want to be like, I'm hungry all the time. Like, nobody wants to hear that when there's not a lot of money. So it's just interesting all the messages that are there, even if we don't say them out loud.
It is, my experience growing up was as the Swede in the United States was different because I remember my mom saying, "Why does the food taste different here?" And then,
Because
you
it's
realize that
trash.
exactly. Which then, don't get me started on food deserts because
Oh,
it is,
Lord.
in my mind, totally unacceptable that everybody
Yeah,
does not have access to fresh produce and fresh fruits and clean vegetables and clean meats that are not like chock full of a bunch of chemicals all the time so that you're not getting
exactly.
the full nutritional value out of it. And it is frustrating to me, and I'm about to say something that reveals my Swedishness. I fully support subsidizing farmers and ranchers and small farmers and ranchers, not
Mhm.
big farms with big ranchers,
Right.
so that people can have access to food at all income levels.
But I mean, talk about lobbying, one of the biggest
Yeah.
lobbyists, we know who that is going to be in that space. And,
Yeah.
and they're chemical based. I mean,
Mhm.
their entire business is these chemicals, these agricultural chemicals, and it's completely changed our food systems, right? And
And our
so,
persons, right? Like, they say
yes.
that stuff impacts your endocrine system like something crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's, like, literally in us, changing everything about us, and then we're told and we're getting these messages that, "Well, you wanna be healthy, just eat this kind of product instead." Right? And so if and so then
Right.
so then it's like the illusion of choice, the illusion of healthy choice, right? And, it's there's so much politics right there too. Like, I remember we had, some friends and family come meet us in Austin and see what we were, doing, just hang out at the house. And I was just talking about how food is so expensive. I don't know how we got onto that topic, but I was like, "Oh god, food is so expensive. Everything's expensive." And they were just like, "Well, yeah, especially when you're buying like all this organic stuff." And it was like kind of like a little judgy. And I was just like, and it's just so funny, right? Because it's like there's a whole politics around like what kind of food you buy now and what it means and almost identity. I mean, holy
Yeah.
smokes with Whole Foods. I mean, if that's not an identity situation, I don't know what is. But it's like, it's a whole cultural thing. These little subcultures that come up, all of these little pools of like, are you this kind of person? Are you that kind of person? Um, and that's not even getting into what we call politics, but it's like
Right.
everything is political. Your food is political. Your clothes are political. Are you buying fast fashion? Are you buying, thrift? Are you reusing are you I mean, some people are literally making their own clothes now, they're going back to that, and it's almost like a judge of, like, how good of a person you are. So, to the topic of everything having to be perfect, I find it stressful just thinking about the word perfect.
Right. Thinking about the messaging aspect of it,
Yes,
I was um, perusing Instacart, and I recognize that's my privilege to be using Instacart, but there was a, you know, package of organic sugar, and underneath it, it said vegan, and I'm like, well, of
it's
course, because
sugar.
it's sugar. Like, this is
Just to make
ridiculous.
sure. I know. It's gone to a point of I don't know what. And I'm not saying it's bad. I just think it's so interesting that it's necessary, right?
Right.
Because it's like, well, first of all, we have in my mind when we're talking about the food systems and the labeling and all of that, for me, it's about trust. Like in Sweden or in these other countries where even, like, back in the day in Mexico, it was like all of the produce was organic and local, all of
Mhm,
it, all of
mhm.
it, all of it, so there was no question, and, um, all of these changes that have happened on a societal level, specifically where we are in the United States, um, all of these changes happened without us in my mind and in my experience. It feels like all of this shifted. I mean, it was probably the same in America. Like we probably had all organic local produce at some point in time, right? Until people realized that they could make a lot of money sending, papayas to Ohio or whatever. Like and they
But,
had to find a way to do it.
when you said that, it made me realize I also have to wonder, did those chemicals also emerge
Mhm.
because society wanted perfect-looking papayas and
Right.
perfect-looking oranges,
Right.
and organically grown vegetables are not perfect looking.
Well, and when you say wanted, I feel like that's so, like, loaded in a way too, because then
Yeah,
we're
so
because then
true.
we're
Good
putting it
point.
on the consumer of, like, what does the consumer want? Well, there's what the consumer wants, and then there's what the, companies, figure out that they can make money off of people's like, just instincts, right? And so it's like, if you give people these choices, or at least perceived choices of, like, here's, an almost rotten looking papaya by the time it gets to Ohio versus here's this like very beautiful looking papaya. They know that you'll buy the beautiful looking papaya, right? The
Mm-hmm.
sad part, the sad truth, and I literally experienced this in Ohio with kiwis. I bought kiwis thinking these kiwis look pretty good. I will buy these kiwis. It was probably like in the middle of winter, which I should have known, but like I haven't been, I haven't even been I've grown up in a time when everything is available all season around, right? So I don't know. I literally didn't get the benefit of understanding the way that seasons work. And so I buy them, I go home, I try to cut they're like literally rocks. They're like
Mm-hmm.
rocks inside, like they're inedible. But you know what? They already have my money.
Yep.
They already got my money. So did I want a kiwi? Yes. But did I get a kiwi? No, not really. I paid for a kiwi. I didn't get to eat the kiwi. And that's trickery. And that's unfortunately the business models that have come out. And so that's why I say that it's almost not about what people want. It's about what you can convince them to buy and what you can do to get them to buy it regardless of what they actually want.
I think that all fits with the whole idea of we have to have everything perfect before we can
Mm,
move forward and get our whole
yep.
lives together or before any decisions are made. And
And
it's
that's
weird.
paralysis. Yeah, that's I mean, we can
Yeah.
get to that paralysis, analysis paralysis where you get stuck. And that's tragic actually. And I actually know a lot of people like this. And I think anxiety is another thing that's at epidemic levels. I mean, I hate to sound so doom and gloom, but I mean, it's not even about the word epidemic. It's more about the pervasiveness of something. How many people, listening right now, how many people, Tessa, can you think of that struggle with anxiety?
Everyone.
Everyone, everyone.
I mean, whether or
And
not they want to label it that or not, they
right,
do.
right. And so we're living in a society that really compels that, and also normalizes it and almost
Probably has,
awards it in a way. Yeah, well, yeah, and then there's money, then you need the pills, right? At a certain point. And so it's just really interesting to me that you have people that are so worried about being perfect. But by people I mean all of us. I think that we are all in this and feeling the pressures of perfection, right? Unless you've found a way to uplift out of it. It's common. It's very common to want everything to be perfect before moving forward. And we know that it's coming from all over the place. Uh, but one of the things that helped me with that very thing was seeing the doers in action. So, I mean, I don't know if this helps anyone or if anyone needs to hear this, but for me, I have I've just I'm always been interested in entrepreneurship, especially social entrepreneurship, but regardless, I like to watch things that, and learn about stories of entrepreneurs and even biographies, of successful people. And one of the things that I just noticed that was a common theme was that these people that made it, for all intents and purposes by our societal measures, these people that reached their goals of whatever those goals were for, building companies, getting so much money, et cetera, building products that were really useful to society, they just do. And, I find that so interesting or it was really helpful for me, I should say, because you see them in their stories fail over
yep.
and over and
Hmm.
over again. And then you even hear people who like are, live giving advice that will tell you like, "Oh yeah, you need to fail. Like you need to have at least like one big fail, like or
Yeah.
multiple fails, or you have to learn to fail, or you have to be trying to fail, or you're not even trying. Like if you're not failing, then you're not trying hard enough, right?" And I all of that helped me to understand that, perfection the idea of perfection holds you back. It doesn't help you. It doesn't
Right.
help you. It holds you down so that you don't do anything. And the people that are getting ahead are the ones that are doing stuff even when it's not perfect.
It is. And it's that idea that overnight success does not occur. It
Right.
is years and years ahead. back that shows how much hard work went into it. And for me, I totally get your idea that it's nice to see people doing it. I am the person that gets motivated, and I don't know if this helps other people, of wondering who created these rules? Why is it
Mhm.
like that? Because
Mhm.
I certainly didn't have any part in creating those rules. So I'm just going to act in defiance and do what I want to do, which is pretty
I love
normal,
that.
my reaction to the world.
Yeah, yeah. And I love those. That's the critical thinkers, right? Like those are my people. The critical thinkers, the ones who like question everything. It's the best. It's the best. I think it's actually the best way to be because you vet things. So even if they are right or correct at the end of the day for you, if you vet them, then you know that they're right, and if you don't, then you never really know. You're just following the pack, and you don't know where you're gonna end up because you're just following. So, I love that critical thought. I love and really, honestly, like, that's the first instinct I have is to be defiant, but the way that I pair it with what I just talked about was, a lot of times, like we talked about, your perfectionism it might feel like it's coming from inside of you, right? Like you just talked about your friend who's like telling you, I'm not going to do anything until I have this, this, and this in order, right? And
Hmm.
that person might think that that's completely like self-determined, maybe. But the truth is, or my opinion is that it's likely coming, from all these outside forces telling them that that's what they
Oh,
have to do, right? Before they can move on. And it's just internalized, right? And so
100%.
yeah, so for me, I do the same thing in thinking, I love when people say I can't do something. That's my defiant nature
Yeah.
of like, now I will show you that I can. But also like the same thing with all of these like entrepreneurs, for example, people will tell them that they have to do it a certain way.
Oh,
And
I hate that
mhm,
expression. I'm sorry. I'm
mhm,
sorry I use that language, but those words, "It has always been done this way," or "It has to be
yes,
done a certain way."
yes,
No,
yes,
no, no,
yes,
no,
yes.
no.
And oftentimes like, I love when people articulate things so clearly like that because then my defiance spells like, they perk up, my ears perk up. I'm like, "Oh, no, we're not that's not gonna be a thing," right? But oftentimes, it's not that clear. It's often more subtle, and it's often more of a nudge, right? Like, for example, and I'm not discouraging anybody from taking this path, but just as an example, everyone has to go to college, right? Like everyone has to get a bachelor's degree, everyone has to get a certain kind of professional degree. Like I feel like I went through my whole like college and even law school years just doing stuff because I thought that was what I was supposed to do. Like
Wow.
like people used to tell me I should be a lawyer. So I was like, I feel like it's so hard to find your sense of self when you're young because you just don't have that experience or you haven't found yourself of self I'm sorry, your sense of self. Um where you could be self-determined, and I admire people so much for, like, knowing, at different ages, and for people who find it later in life, for anybody who goes on that journey and finds themselves and then lives truly, for themselves. I think that is, like, the biggest journey in life is just being able to kind of start tuning out all the voices of everyone
You're
else.
right, and I also wondered, is
Yeah.
that also like a confidence game, right? Like, are the
Mhm.
people who are supremely confident less likely to listen to all those voices that are coming from the
Mm.
outside?
Yeah. And are they confident or are they making a conscious choice, like, not to listen?
Ooh, mhm.
Because, in my experience, like I said, with the self-esteem stuff, it's like, I don't know. It's not an easy journey to go from low self-esteem to high self-esteem.
Right.
Um, and even when you think that you've done it, it's like a maintenance game. It's never just there. It's never gifted to you. It's never guaranteed to you, even if you've accomplished it in whatever sense you think you have. Somebody can say something and it can cut right through to your core and
Oh,
you won't
yes.
not even expect it, right? And you might feel like you're the
Yep.
most confident person in the world until that one person says that one thing that just hits you right in your soft spot, right? And that part is always intriguing to me because it's not about the fact that it happened or that you felt it. It's about what you do next. What do you do with that feeling, right? Do you get defensive? Do you engage in some kind of argument? Do you get petty with it? Do you get revenge on this person? I don't know, like all the things that could happen. Or do you reflect on that? Do you think about why that hurt you so much?
Mhm.
Do you talk about it in an assertive way or in a healthy way with the person? Do you need to involve the person? Maybe you just talk to your therapist or your best friend about it.
Yeah.
Maybe you talk to yourself about it. Maybe you talk to, strangers about it. I mean, everyone has to find a process that's healthy for them. And then, confidence for me is really about, again, having a strong sense of self and having the self-esteem to know that even when you fail, you're still incredible. You're still an
Yeah.
amazing person. You still have value. You're still worthy. You're still worthy of all the good things that you want in your life. You're still worthy of love. You're still worthy of self-love. You're still worthy of all of, the material things you want in your life, or the non-material things you want in your life, the spiritual things you want in your life. Whatever your heart desires, you deserve it. Why not? I don't, and that's the part that makes me really upset when you talk about perfectionism. It makes me upset that there's so many people who believe that they are not good enough. That's what perfectionism means to
Yeah.
me. When somebody says perfection, I say, who's perfection?
Mhm.
Because, perfectionism is trying to live up to somebody else's standards. That's what I think perfectionism is. For me, I was born perfect. That's where I am now after a long journey and struggle
I
with
love that, and
self-esteem,
I
right?
try I try to overuse the word perfect to take
Mm.
away its power,
Oh, yeah, that's fun.
right?
That's
Like, so that
I just mess with
you
them. I love it.
yeah, so you know that things don't have to be perfect, and that perfect is not everything all in its place. Perfect is you accepting that this is how it is, and it's going to be great.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I actually, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I it's making me think about sometimes how I spin things in my head. So, like even when things are, not going my way or not going according to plan. I try not to have too many plans actually, right?
Yeah,
Um, I like to do the same thing where I'm just like, "You know what though? It was perfect. It was
right?
great still. It was
Mhm.
still wonderful and it was a good story." Or, like giving giving these positive attributes to something that otherwise people might say like, "Well, that was terrible and everything, went to crap and didn't go the way that you planned," or, "That's too bad, whatever." I like to just try to see the good in it. Because, that's life. I don't know. I feel like life is a beautiful thing. It's just like it has to be messy. If there was no messiness and there was actual true perfection in the traditional sense of the word, how boring would that be? My God.
It would be awful, right? Like,
Yeah.
I like the diversity. I like the need to adapt
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
adjust and see
The
the world in
surprises. The
and
surprises
also
in life. Yeah.
the reminder that to be comfortable in that kind of messiness, it
Yeah.
also requires, what we've talked about a long time, our group of advisors or our group of friends, our group of however we're looking at it,
Mm.
who are diverse and have the ability to lift us up, right? Not those that are going to bring us down or say, well, that really sucked,
Mhm.
didn't it, for you?
Yeah, and see things in a different way. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, I've seen the magic. I've seen the magic happen over and over again where, first of all, it's a skill that can be learned. That's the
Yes.
first thing I will say because, where I come from, everything is kind of doom and gloom in one sense. Like it's just easy to be doom and gloom. But the people who were in my life that were just, kind of making fun of life.
Hmm.
Just like, "We're poor, but we're gonna have fun anyways." Like, those are the people who changed my life for the better and taught me the skill to see the best in life and to build on it, like people like you and other people that I'm so lucky to have found in my life that have went beyond that. Like, I thought I was the optimist in my, in my circle, and then when I find somebody who can one up me, I'm like, "Oh, yes," like,
Yeah.
new level, like, where I'm just like, anything can kind of be interpreted, differently, and time can really change your interpretation of things too. And so
Yeah.
when you get that perspective, right, like then you realize like, oh, well, maybe this is what it looks like now, this is what it feels like now, but maybe in a year or two or three or five, like maybe this will be the best thing that ever happened in my life. You don't know. That's the beauty of it.
And I used to get very kind of like, I think in my 20s, kind of uncomfortable when people would say, trust the process. But you know what?
Mm.
It's right. Do trust the
Mm.
process. And part of
Mhm.
it is trusting yourself to know what you want and need and to know that you can adapt at any time. Like a decision is not something that you make for your entire life,
Mhm.
right? It
Mhm.
can change and it's okay that it changes.
Yeah,
And I feel like so
absolutely.
many people get this kind of ingrained notion that say, I decided when I was 5 years old I wanted to be a
I was gonna
whatever
be
it
a
is,
firefighter, yeah. And that
firefighter,
didn't
right?
happen, yeah.
And then
Now my
I
life is
was
a failure.
right. And it's as though that 5-year-old didn't have the opportunity to like take in more knowledge and figure out what they really
Mm.
wanted and
Mhm.
adapt. And you know what? It doesn't matter if you're 45 and decide, hey, what
Right.
I've been doing, I don't want to do
It's
it anymore.
exactly,
That's okay.
exactly, exactly. Yes, and I think it feels like, all of that for me pertains to and relates to what I would suggest as we should all be centering ourselves in self-love. Like that to me that again, it's like, the self-esteem crisis that I talked about, it's almost like it's accepted and it's almost like the value system that's ingrained in this country promotes it. Like, we talked about at the beginning, we talked about, have you earned that? Or, did you do enough that you should get this or that, right? And for
Yeah.
me, that's telling me, like, in that language of self-love and self-esteem, it's telling me, are you enough? Have you proved that you are enough? Have you proved that you are worthy, right? And that's the part where it's beyond behavior. I know people try to, kind of control or try to make good habits for people, and there's nothing, I don't know if there's anything wrong with that. Like, yeah, you want children to have good habits, good healthy habits, sure. But there is something there that is internalizing your actions with all of your self-worth, and that's the part that I think is damaging us later on, where we're just, we think that everything that we show, the behaviors that we show, the accomplishments that we show, that determines how worthy we are or how much self-esteem we should have about ourselves. And that's the part that I want to challenge with everybody because, in my mind, everybody is valuable. Of course, like that should be a given. Everyone has value, everyone has worth. And the sad truth is I think people are really anxious because they are trying to prove it to themselves and others. And they're always
Mhm.
trying to figure out the way to do that. And I've seen people, even elderly people, still struggling with this. And I've advised them, I hope rightfully that, it's not about the outside. It's this is an inside journey. This is something that you you need to turn inward and stop looking on the outside for all of this affirmation, and nobody on the outside can really give to you. They really can't. There's,
No.
sometimes people are trying to find ways to satisfy the expectations of like their parents or whoever kind of really, you know, was prominent and they wanted to impress as a child. And I think our work now is really about, understanding that the only person we need to impress is ourselves. And we don't even need to
Yeah.
impress ourselves. We really just need to love ourselves. That's all we really need to do.
Right. And we call it, I think, I know I'm guilty of it. We assume that other people like have everything together and
Oh,
that's why this
yeah.
is happening. And you
Oh,
know what?
yeah.
They do not.
They do not, and I've learned I even, like, literally in the last couple of weeks last few weeks, I've always, like, been so, like, impressed with the fact that, like, people's lawns look perfect and their homes look perfect and their cars look perfect, and I was like, "Man, these people have it all together. It's so amazing," and it's not me. It's not me. And I appreciate you and other people, but I mean, literally, like, it's just come out in conversations in front of me recently where people are like, "Oh, yeah, well, I have bring the housekeeper in here every, like, every other day or like once a week or whatever, and then we do this and we have the lawn keepers and of course I should know this, but it's literally one of those internalized things where you don't even think about it. You're not thinking.
Hmm.
I'm not sitting here thinking like, "Oh, these people," I'm like, not talking to myself like, "Oh, these people are better people than me because look at how they're keeping their lawn and they're doing all the work." Like I'm not thinking that. I'm just seeing it and
Hmm.
something in my mind is telling me like this is better than you. And I don't even think about how it's come to be. And so I find it so interesting um, that perfectionism, right? Again, is an idea, and it's not a reality. And even if it is some in reality, what looks to be something may not very well be. I mean, and don't even get me started on social media filters and all of that jazz. But
Yeah.
what is real and what is the whole story? I mean, the sad truth is like we just internalize these things without even thinking about it. And that's the scariest part. And that's why self-reflection and self practice of self-love is really important to make time for.
I agree 100%. And for those of us out there who would have defiant spirits too, remember who made up these rules and
Hmm.
who decided that was the definition of perfect. And when you internalize it, did you stop to ask, oh, do I really think that's true?
Mm, such a
Because
good point.
it is amazing how much we absorb and we just continue going and our subconscious latches onto it
Yeah.
and we think that that's the way it should be. Not because we decided that's actually how it should be, but because we didn't do the rational thinking behind it. And we're like, yep, I want the manicured lawn and I want this and I want that and I want this
Hmm.
and I think I need to earn this income and that's when I will be successful. No, you'll be
And
successful when you're happy.
yes, and happiness is, not to simplify it, but to a certain extent, it is a choice. Um,
Hmm.
there's people with all different circumstances, all different, life circumstances that they are happy every day. I mean, I've met some people who it amazes me how happy they are. Like I'm jealous of how happy they are. I'm trying to get on their level of like waking up happy, and it's really a practice in a lot of different ways. Like one of the practices that helped me is trying to practice gratitude. Like anytime, like I struggle just like I think everybody. I don't think that there's one person who's exempt from this in the world. I think everybody has a struggle. Even the people I'm talking about that seem happy every day. I don't know if they
Hmm.
really are. Like that's just their outward facing, persona. So I still don't know their true story, but we do know our own true stories. That's the only story we really, really, really know. That's the only one
Yeah.
we really know, and nobody else maybe really knows unless you're able to really express it fully with somebody you trust and love the most, maybe. But or share your life with maybe. But I mean, nobody knows what's going on inside of you. Only you really know that, right? And so for me, I the happiness thing, we don't always have to be happy, of course, there's a room in life for real sadness and grief and, complications and struggles, and that's all part of that, but also, letting perfectionism or other people's standard of an idea of perfectionism, putting that on you, letting that happen, allowing it and choosing to force that on yourself, we all know that that's not gonna lend to the practice of happiness, and so I one of my practices is practicing gratitude whenever I'm feeling, whatever kind of way, and honestly, as we were talking about it, I was thinking about how I'm self-programming, dude, like, I am complicit, and I'm a co-conspirator in my own, kind of, level of unhappiness in a way of just like, I'm watching all of these shows that are telling me this is what a perfect house looks like, this is what a, perfect whatever looks like, and why? Why? Why am I doing that? I don't know. I really don't know. It seems like I enjoy it, and maybe it's okay to have aspirations or what have you, but there's definitely a tipping point, right? Like there's a point where, and I feel like it's the same thing with social media and almost this commodification of the human, like, appearance, just what we look like generally, but oh God, it feels like you know, we 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 want to be in a place where we are finding something that we aspire to, things that we want to have, things that we think would make us happy. And I think that's where it lies, is that just like you said, we want to think that if we had it all this so just right, then we would be happy. And at the end of the day, this topic for me really is about where you get your happiness. And it feels like when you talk about perfection that, it's almost like a misplaced goal where people think if they can make themselves and their lives conform to this cookie cutter standard of someone else's what they call perfection, then they will be happy. And my challenge to everyone is to say, where do you really find happiness? Um, I think perfection is the worst place to look. The best place to look is probably inside, is to look at your inner child, what that person needs. Look at your present self, how you can love yourself. Like to me, that's where real happiness comes from, and that's I think it's just kind of a misplaced energy.
I think you're absolutely right. I like to ask people how they see themselves. And I think that it's hard for people to talk about how they see themselves.
Mm,
And it's part of the, I would say, pathway to allowing yourself to just be happy in the present. Like I see myself kind of as like the swan on the lake, and when bad stuff happens, which it does, as you pointed out, but it's
mhm.
kind of like something that's floating on the lake. Like let's say there's a piece of poop floating on the lake. Well, that piece of poop is just floating right on by. I'm not going to latch onto it. I acknowledge it. It sucked, and now it's going away.
I love the visuals you create. These are my favorite. They stick with me. I'm never gonna forget the poop on the lake. That's the best one.
But I think it's important, right? At least it's important for me and my way of seeing the world and from a positive standpoint and from a happy standpoint is because, hey, that lake is beautiful, but sometimes there's poop on it.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
okay. It doesn't
yeah.
take away from the beauty of the lake. And is that lake
Mm,
perfect? No. But is that lake perfect for me? Yes.
mm,
And that's, I
yeah.
think, the big difference on perfection, right? Like, are you determining perfection based on society's views, or is it something that's perfect for you?
And I love that. And it makes me think of the way that I think about life generally, and perfection, because like I've been saying, perfection is, who's perfection, whose standard, right? And what I like to think about all the time is that we're each creating the lives that we want to live, and the lives that are perfect for us.
Yeah.
And I understand that everyone has different challenges in life to create the life that they want, but I really believe one of the biggest things, and maybe this is, maybe this is ignoring some kind of privileges that I have had, but I really think that I mean, because I've seen it, I've seen people of all different stations doing it. It's the mindset, right? It's letting those voices come in from the outside that are telling you, "This is how you're supposed to do it. This is what it should look
Mhm.
like. This is what perfectionism is. This is what you should be doing." And for me, that's literally someone telling me how to live the life they want. Which doesn't make any
Exactly.
sense, right? Like, if you
Exactly.
take ownership of your life and what you wanna see it be, then and you know that this is what you're doing intentionally, and you reject the voices of people who are telling you it should be another way because
Mhm.
you know what you're doing. You know that you're intentionally building towards this vision of the life that you have for yourself. That to me is a big key part of it, where perfectionism, it has no more meaning now, right? Because again, it's somebody else's life. And so I know that I've had people, even when I was young, tell me, this isn't right, this isn't what you should do, this isn't who you should be with or where you should go or blah 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 blah. And that's how I think of that because it means nothing to me. And
Just like a snoopy teacher, just rah, 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 rah.
because for me, you know what I've learned so much? I mean, the best thing about psychology, I think that I learned was about projection because people are projecting their stuff onto you. They are
Yeah.
seeing you do something that they are uncomfortable with, so they feel that they have to tell you that that is not the right thing to do. And what they're really telling you is that is not the right thing for them. And if you literally just understand that, then it's easy to ignore these people because if you know that they're telling you what's right for them or what they think that they should do for them or what they would or wouldn't do, you can just attribute that to, okay, well then that's what you should do with your life, and I'm going to do what I want with my life. And I don't know how I got that. That is one thing that I got when I was young, where I was just like, I don't know, you have to live your life, so you make your decisions, and I have to live my life, so I'm gonna, make my decisions and I'll live with them, and that's served me. So I just felt compelled to share that because that has helped me through a lot of naysayers and negative voices and people who said no and you shouldn't and you can't and you won't and you'll never. You mean,
Mhm.
I just turn that around and I say, "You think that you could never do that. You think that you will never do that. You think that you should never do that. That's got nothing to do with me, honey."
And I think,
Nothing to do with me.
I think we could take that to a macro level too, where all these notions in society of like you have to have all your stuff together before you do something.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's what everybody else thinks. That doesn't need to be how
Mhm.
you think.
Absolutely, that's what they're telling you. They're telling you, "Oh, you can't, no, you can't move until you've got a good career and you're making this much money, and, you can't have I mean, you mentioned the kid thing, and I didn't even
Mhm.
talk about this, but, like, that literally was my experience of when I was younger. I knew I wanted to have a child, but, I remember talking about it with some of the older women in a law firm that I was working at, and I literally was the person that you're talking about, Tessa. Like, I was her. I was the person who was like, "Well, I have to have this, and I have to have that, and I have to everything has to be perfect before I have a child," and this woman gave me some incredibly wise advice. She just looked at me and said, "Honey, if you wait until everything's perfect, you will never have a child."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that sounds right." That's probably true.
And I think true for all decisions, right? Like
Yeah,
true for
exactly,
any goal you want to
exactly.
attain.
Yes, and I've seen it. Let me just give you another example of this. So one of the things that, is limiting is, when I was young, out of college, didn't have money, a lot of money. I was working as a nanny for people who had a lot more money than me, right? I was like, "Hey, I need a week off because I'm going on a cruise." And they were like, "What?" Like, they know how much money I make, they pay me, right? They're like, "How are you
Mhm.
going on a cruise?" And I was like, "I'm going on a cruise because always wanted to go on a cruise, and I found an opportunity, so I'm gonna go." And they're like, "We've never even been on a cruise." These are people, 10, 20 years my senior with so much more money at the time. than I had ever seen. And they were like shocked, and I think that they were shocked about the fact that they never did it, even though they clearly, obviously wanted to. Like they were jealous of me, and it was just so funny to me because it showed me that the only thing holding you back is yourself. Like literally your
Yeah.
mindset of what you believe can and cannot happen is what holds you back because for them, they thought that they couldn't go on a cruise, I guess, which was not true. but but they never, prioritized it. They never made it a reality for themselves. They never seen it as a reality for themselves. So, please don't let anybody tell you that like having vision is a bad thing. Like that's how I describe it now. But people have put me down in the past by saying, I'm a dreamer or I am like high, pie in the sky, whatever, whatever, whatever they want to call me. Again, blah, 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 blah. I don't hear it, but I have rebranded it into having vision. Having vision is a great thing. It's a great thing, and it's a leadership quality.
And I think this is a good place to conclude on that note because everybody should remember your vision works for you and it doesn't need to
Hmm.
work for anyone else. And
Yep.
go for it and make sure you have people around you who are there to support you and build you up, not tear you down.
Yes. 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 All of that. Thank you for this conversation, Tessa, and thank you everyone for listening in and making these types of conversations possible. I hope that they're uplifting you as much as they uplift me.
Every time we chat, it's an uplift for me. And I hope it is for everyone who's listening too. Until next time, guys.
Take care.